Welcome back to Incremental, the continuous improvement podcast. This is episode 109, our concepts edition for the week. I'm Devin Bedoni of Like & Precision.
And I'm Uriel Eisen of Austere Manufacturing.
And the quote this week is from Theodore Roosevelt. What did you say the speech was called?
The Man in the Arena.
It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions? Who spends himself in a worthy cause? Who, at the best, knows in the end the triumph of high achievement? And who, at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat.
Gives me chills. So good. Kyle, who co-founder of Arda,
Famously.
showed me this speech. Just so good. It's on many levels. Firstly, and this is just me stepping into the rant corner a little bit. I don't know if I've hit a certain number of followers on social media, which isn't a huge number, but I just feel like I get a lot more comments that are just like that automation is slow. I'm like, okay, A, I don't think it is, but B,
Sure.
Send me a video of your automation, not as a.
You mean they're saying your automation is slow?
I'll post a video of the automation on my mill, and then they'll be like, "That's really slow. Like that kind of sucks." I'm like, okay, I'm open. What I normally reply is, I'm open to any and all specific ideas for improvement, because legitimately I am. I'd love to make it better. Anyway, that's on one front. Is people who criticize often are a little busy criticizing and a little not so busy doing anything. But also, I think it's a great quote for continuous improvement, because the idea is not to avoid failure.
Yeah.
The idea is to try things, and it is so much easier to criticize than to build something. And it is way easier to build a culture that incentivizes people to be careful about what they present, because they are judged based on what they present as their work product rather than the process they went through. And the more you drive up the desire people have to show off a quality product, the more costly R&D is going to be internally, because your, no offense, shitty job cart was perfect. And it would have been a waste of time to make it better than that for testing the premise. Yeah. And so the fact that it was sort of cobbled together was the virtue of that.
Yeah.
And it's way easier for me to sit over here and be like, well, have you thought about not making it crappy, or not actually, right? What about welding legs on? And you're like, yeah, all of that. Yes to all of that. But right. That's not the point right now.
I mean, they call it armchair engineering for a reason.
Yes.
Because it is easy.
Yeah, it's so easy. It's very frustrating, but also, very inspiring to me.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's certainly an uphill battle in the cultural milieu that we exist in, because of how we are trained from being able to talk onward to present, basically.
Yeah.
We're always being taught to present, whether that is how we look or how we talk or what we bring to the table in any kind of a situation. It is often about presentation more than substance.
Yeah, and more than process. And more than where you're at in the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's horrible incentives, and really results in poor outcomes, like purely economically, for sure. Like businesses just really drive up their costs.
Yeah.
And like ideation should be filled with bad ideas, and criticizing those ideas is counterproductive for two reasons. It's a total waste of time. And like, instead of criticizing that idea, just come up with a better one.
Right.
And it creates a really bad culture where people are worried about it doesn't feel good to be judged or criticized, and they're worried about that in putting forward an idea. And so they want their idea to have some level of refinement. And when they stand up to present their idea, they don't want someone to stand there and like poke holes in it. But it's like, that culture is so easy to make, and the other culture is really hard.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a bit recently, in regards to just, kind of developing things within the shop and the process of doing that. And I think we're trained, whatever. I feel like I go on about this, but I do feel like there's a strong cultural incentive to have, like, conceptually have two people and two ideas that aren't necessarily in opposition, but get placed in opposition.
Yeah. So should we do this or that?
Because there's theoretically one outcome available.
Yes.
And so we sort of like naturally orient to this opposition mindset and stance, versus sort of like conceptually being two people standing next to each other, appraising different options, and realizing then in that situation that these aren't really two different things. Like, they can mix, or in many cases they are mostly the same with slight variations, or backing up, that we don't actually have to choose one right now, right? Like, we can test both.
Right.
As I was saying this, I was already like falling into the classic sort of mindset of like, there is one way to go forward here. And if you back up further, it's like, that's actually false. We can do both. It's not typical for whatever reason.
Nor is lean or continuous improvement.
Right? Like,
not being typical does not reflect on
it's typical for an organization to say, we have limited whatever resources that we want to put towards this. Present me with one opportunity and we will pursue it. Or one proposal.
One moment. And one opportunity.
Yeah. And we'll pursue it.
Yeah.
Versus saying, well, make me 5 different ones and we're going to see which one's better.
Yeah.
Or not even better. Like, we're going to see which one.
The merits of each and the downsides of each.
And it's a very hard sort of dynamic to establish when it's so counter to everything we sort of deal with in most other places in our lives.
Yeah. And so I think what we can aspire to is to be the doer of deeds and to not be the cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. I saw a shop tour last night in which it was striking. One of the people, they were just walking around to different, the team was in the midst of their improvement hour. Yeah. And so they pulled a few people aside, and one of them, they asked, how many improvements do you do throughout the week? And he was like, well, realistically, the ones that are successful, maybe 1. He's like, but I probably do 20. A lot of them aren't successful, or a lot of them are. And I was just like impressed that was even highlighted. Not mentioning it would be more typical, even though it's like accepted and taught. But like, it's like, yeah, I normally fail. Like, most of them are quote unquote failures. And then the head of the company, and of course this is why that guy said it, the head of the company was like, yeah, we had someone who a new person spent weeks rebuilding this table, and they're kind of like, hey, how's the progress? Like, what are you trying to learn? What are the achievements what are your next steps? Do you need help? And finally it was kind of like dragging on, and they're like, what's the next steps? And they're like, well, I'm just worried it won't work. And they're like, well, why do you keep working on it? And they're like, well, it would be a waste if I stopped now. And they're like, absolutely not a waste. You learned how to weld. You got the team engaged on this problem. You understand more about problems, like so many positives.
Yeah.
And then they brought that in as the example project into the team huddle that they do after the improvements to talk about the quote, what a success that failure was, essentially.
Yeah. I think it's another thing I've been thinking about is how prone we are to judge something on the merits of a solution, a project, a process as a snapshot in time and not as an evolution towards something greater.
That's a great point.
And it's very easy to be like,
right. Like single piece flow is worse immediately worse.
Yeah.
Which is why they don't suggest doing it all at once.
Right. Right. Yeah.
It is trending in a very powerful direction.
Yeah. And that's a great example. Or, like our foray into anodizing.
Yeah.
It is immediately worse.
Right.
Right. Like
way more expensive. Yeah.
It's way more expensive. It takes up shop space. It takes up someone's resources, like a person's time that could be doing other things. Like it's a litany of things that are worse. Quality will probably be worse, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so if you were to view it simply in that snapshot, you'd be like, full stop. Absolutely not.
Right.
But viewed sort of in the longer timeline of what sort of options this will open for the company as a whole, then it starts to be a very different picture. And I feel like that's also sort of like something you're going through with ARDA a little bit. Not that it's worse, like there's definite operational benefits. But
V1 was worse 9 months ago.
Exactly. You're experiencing stumbling blocks and there's challenges and it's not like a fully polished solution in every scenario. But when you like expand your time horizon out 5 years and think about the fact that there's an entire team dedicated to developing this product,
right?
Like that's the job. I mean, granted, it's a small team at this point, but it is a team, and its plans to grow. Then all of a sudden, it becomes an extremely different sort of scenario. Yeah,
that sort of reminds me of the saying I really like, which I heard from Bike Friday. Operation sensitive and process blind.
Yeah.
So that's kind of similar. It's like is this anodized part a better deal for the company? Hell no. Like absolutely not. But is it a better deal for the company?
Yes.
Very much yes. Right. Yeah. Anyway.
It's a good rant.
Good speech. I guess there's a reason he made it to president.
Yes, and there's a reason somebody wrote it down.
Yeah, that too. Selection bias.
Yeah.
Have you when people say things used to be made better, like things aren't made as they were? It's sort of self-selecting sample. Like
sure,
the nicely made stuff survived or was kept because it was nice.
Yeah, their stuff's in a trash heap.
Yeah. I don't know if that's entirely true. Like the dynamics have changed. Like we've talked about this, I think, but the relationship of the cost of labor to materials.
Yeah. So
there are other factors, but
there's other factors, but I mean,
but he gave a lot of speeches, and we read this one. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like there was snake oil salesman. Not everything was made better.
Yes,
right?
True.
And I'm sure there was the equivalent with hard goods and across the board.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a thing. I've got a note here. Well, you've got something highlighted that's juicy, actually.
Oh, this is short but juicy.
Okay.
We can jump into this and then jump into improvement kata, perhaps. So I was going through our inventory, rationalizing our production and
so
rational. And I pulled out this box of earplugs that we've owned. I bought it when we set up the shop. So that was 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I got, per earplug, great price, which is why I bought a humongous box of earplugs. it took up about 10 inches of frontal space on the shelf.
Which in Uriel's shop is a percentage.
It's like, 10%. But we basically use them for guests, the earplugs. Yeah. So we rarely use them, and it's taking up a huge amount of space, all driven by the fact that I wanted a good deal on these bits of foam. So instead of spending like $1 on a set or $3 on a set, I'm trying to spend like 75 cents.
Yeah.
At a huge cost of wasted space, and they're getting dusty, and I'm sure they have a shelf life, right? They probably
relatively huge cost, like in ratio term.
It's so irrational.
Yeah.
Like as I go through object by object, the temptation to get a good deal and then screw yourself, like it's kind of, I don't know. It's like, it's very hard to not fall into that temptation. So I was making cards. That's why I was doing it. And I broke it out into these smaller bins that are 4 inches across. And I mean, we have way more than we need, but then I sourced a smaller quantity for next replenishment, which will probably be in another 3 years.
10.
Yeah.
Probably.
Anyway.
Probably what will happen is you will throw them all away and buy a few more over the ears and be done with it.
It's mostly for guests and stuff.
Yeah, but they can wear over the ears.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. I do have extras. Maybe I should hang them by the door. That would be...
There you go.
And save 4 more inches and then throw them away, proving once and for all that I didn't save any money on a per unit basis. Anyway, I say that as sort of an example. As we go through, I just find more and more examples of us sacrificing, like handling that stuff, managing it, eating up space, like really valuable space.
Yeah.
And to save dollars over years.
Yeah.
It's so irrational. It's such poor, it's like operation focused, process blind to the max. It's like or like, penny wise and pound foolish, basically.
Right.
It's been really fun to go through and look at each item, and it's like, okay. And then when we order this, how much space is this going to take up? And then can we just drop it right into the bin? Or do I need to start like balancing things, and then they're falling on the floor, and then I'm picking them up, and then I'm feeling good about how much money I saved on this Sharpie, yeah. I mean, not to throw you under the bus. You had one too. We took out a box of 72 dry erase markers. I like put them all in bins, one behind the other. Set the minimum, and then I took the liberty to source fewer. Yeah. Which maybe you'll override. I don't know. But
no, it's perfect because actually, perfect example.
Yeah.
I ordered those because they were fine-tipped Sharpies, which I wanted for writing on our non-standard job tags.
That you had at the time. Or
that we still have.
Okay. Yeah.
But they suck.
Oh.
So I want to find a different option anyway, and we have 75 of them.
Interesting. Yeah.
So it's a perfect example of don't buy extra, especially the first time.
Yeah, you're like, oh man, these are so inexpensive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for a reason.
I guess.
Yeah, they're pretty awful. I mean, pretty awful is a relative term. But
I mean, here's another example. Yeah. We're deep in the weeds, so for the 3 listeners who are still with us here. I bought T25 Torx drives.
Yeah.
Which is, we've standardized all of our screws for like building stuff around the shop, wood screws and stuff.
Yep.
T25.
It's a good size. Everyone loves it.
Great size. Terrific size. I found 5 packs of the tips because the other day I dropped a tip. I couldn't find it.
Yep.
And then I spent 5 minutes walking around trying to find another tip. And I was like, okay, time for a card, time for a bin. So we have that now. It's a pack of 5. We do not go through 5 very quickly.
Sure.
So now it's when we break open that pack of 5, the idea is to order another pack of 5. I will caveat all this by saying that the $7 we're talking about here is not going to be a make or break for the company, but the theory is interesting. Do we just source them off of McMaster where they're fast delivery, very reliable, and we can buy them one at a time, and then we set a minimum of...
Plus your shipping cost.
Yeah, but we ordered enough stuff from them that it would just get aggregated in ARDA automatically. No. Well, yes. But what do you think?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Do the one at a time?
I mean, if you only need one at a time additionally, there's no chance that you're going to need 2 one day. But
yeah, it's very low.
Yeah.
And so do I set the minimum to like 3 in case we are building something as a team and need a few? And then when we break the 3, we order another 3? Or do I just go like when you pull 1, you order 1? Because I could just put more cards there. It just seems a little crazy. I don't know.
I think, like you said, either way will be fine.
Yes.
But for the sake of discussing the principle,
Yeah.
you need to match it to use. So if in a worst case, like there's 2 people in your shop in most cases,
Right.
worst case scenario, you need 2 additional if you were to both lose 1.
Yeah.
I guess there's a theoretical worst case scenario where you both lose 1 and then one person loses another one. But really, that's an extreme edge case.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd size it to needing 2 on hand additional at all times.
And then the counter argument is the pack of 5 is probably cheaper than 2 on McMaster, and they don't take up any more space virtually.
Sure.
Once you add a card.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, but we're speaking conceptually here. I would probably, assuming they were good, I would probably buy the 5.
Milwaukee?
Yeah, they
great
work.
point from Avi. I was about to buy some other ones. I was on the phone with him at the time. And he was like, do they have Milwaukee? Because they're all bright red. You might not lose them as fast. So I bought them.
That's true.
Anyway.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I had a long conversation with a friend yesterday about improvements in a business and needing. This is a friend who's not really familiar with lean.
Okay.
He understands the concepts, and I've tried to give him books, and he jokes about how he'll just start training people instead.
Hilarious. Yep.
He says, what do I have to do to start training this stuff? Anyway, we were talking about improvements and how there was the lack of SOP in his shop for making well, I was saying you probably need an SOP for making improvements. And he was like, well, what's that? And I was like, well, let me tell you. There's this thing called the improvement kata. But then I couldn't really remember all the steps perfectly. So I wanted to do a quick refresh. This is, I think, coming from Mark Rother's sort of, because if you look it up, you'll see some different sort of versions. They all follow the same.
I'm
basic.
on the University of Michigan website.
Yep.
I'm going to drop that link in the show notes.
Yeah. There's a great PDF on here that you can print out. That's just sort of like an overview, has a cool little card with the basics laid out. And then there's a bunch of sort of like, what is it here? It's like 8 pages or something. 11 pages that gives a little more background and kind of like workflow stuff. But just to go over it, the 5 questions. 1, what is the target condition? 2, what is the actual condition now? 3, what obstacles do you think are preventing you from reaching your target condition? And which one are you addressing now? What is your next step or experiment? And what do you expect to happen? And how quickly can we go and see what we have learned from taking that step? And I think it's very easy to forget some or all of these steps in our work.
Yeah, and I've seen this more times than I can count. Like number 5 particularly, I think is very easy to wave away because of how much we've talked ourselves into the fact that we are smart and understand the impacts of the relative merit. Like you were sort of saying about trying one thing versus trying a few things.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, no, that won't work for these reasons. My idea is better because it addresses all those reasons, forgetting that there might be problems with your own idea and also merits to the other, even if it is in fact worse. But like, how quickly can we go and see the results is huge. I mean, these are all awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
I'm going to print this up and print this out and hang it in the shop.
Same.
Cause I mean, we do improvements all the time. And I think it's so interesting. I think fail to do this explicitly, which I think puts us at single loop learning, or no, puts us at double loop learning, where we are not just learning about how to do the thing, we are learning about, sorry, did I get that wrong? No, it puts us at single instead of double, where if you start following this kata, you're suddenly going to be improving at making improvements instead of just improving the thing that you're doing.
Yeah. And
I think we all have Toyota to thank. I mean,
Japan in general.
Well, I was just going to say for sort of lean manufacturing, but also for optimizing it to such a high degree. Because I think there are a lot of very efficient companies who don't have much theory about how they became efficient because they were just really improving every day. And that's great. Yeah. But there's not many books, and it doesn't really help any other one else, I think. Yeah. And Toyota took a tremendous amount of time. I mean, they even say this, like, they don't really care about the results, right? Like in your job evaluation, you're not really evaluated on your results. You're evaluated on the process.
Which ends up being results.
No.
In the end, like for the company as a whole.
Oh, over 100 years. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Which most people don't have the sort of like wherewithal to have you like think on that time scale.
Yeah, but I just think we're doing ourselves a disservice in my shop every day by not pushing. At the beginning, it will feel like imposing those 5 questions on our activities, and it's like, damn, this is just slowing us down. But I think over time, well, hopefully we'll find out. But over time, I expect that would accelerate our ability to deliver good improvements on our first, not on our first try, but sort of like our first try sort of suggests that we're doing the opposite of what the Toyota Kata suggests we should do. In that it's not the first try as in the first experiment, but it's sort of the first completion of the
loop
process,
or the long loop.
The long loop. Yeah. Like more small loops and then a faster long loop.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That makes sense.
Super clear. Now that that's all clarified. Yeah, this is a really cool document. I'm going to have to read through it.
Nice.
They have a memory aid for improvement kata. Learning to learn. Great topic. All right.
One thing that came up during your implementation of ARDA in our shop was just the concept of centralized storage in general, which I thought was cool to revisit. We sort of kind of accidentally stumbled into that with our tooling storage,
right?
Mostly due to the fact that I bought one large cabinet. That's where we put everything. And then it slowly been pointed towards doing more and more of that on the digital side. But then we had this moment where you guys were in the shop discussing with Kyle like where all the different things were going to go. And I just had this flash and I was like, why are we keeping things in all these different places? Like in theory, there is a supposed efficiency in having the things close to where you need them, assuming that you can find them there and you don't have to go check 3 other places before you get there.
Yeah.
But there's also a very real efficiency to having everything in one place with a simple rubric or method for finding them in that one place.
Yeah.
Sort of similar to the kind of flat file concept we were talking about a few weeks ago, I think, for data storage in general. And so I thought that was pretty cool, and I think something we'll push towards more in the future.
Yeah, it sort of feels like similar. Firstly, I do want to shout out to Brad Cairns. He had a tour of his shop.
Oh, yes.
And he kind of mentioned that they've tried a lot of options and that they've found that the best is to have centralized storage. So that's sort of what got that in my head.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting. Like you almost have to, it's like the inventory thing where you increase inventory to then decrease inventory. Like you have to earn it.
Yeah.
I suspect that some things will get redistributed over time, but also maybe not. I could just be wrong about that. Like I could also imagine a scenario where they're just breadcrumbed to different locations, right? Like when you pick up a mouse, it says on the mouse where to get another mouse if you need it.
Yeah.
Instead of having a spare at each computer, which wouldn't make a ton of sense.
Uh-huh.
But also, I mean, things like, shipping supplies. There's no other place where for us, small shop, we have one shipping station.
Yeah.
So I could imagine moving the storage back into the shipping location. The thing is, what we found in our shop, which is really small, which means it's not a great sort of analogy for a lot of shops, but also it actually forces a lot of things to be more optimized. Yeah. What we found about combining stations is that it's really not scalable, in that if you want to flex your pace through that cell, like suddenly you can't restock items that have arrived to the shipping department without stopping your shipping or disrupting it.
Oh,
right.
Because
it's like stored in the shipping department.
Right.
So like if the drawers that the people are shipping from, like pulling plastic bags out of, is also where you restock plastic bags. You have the like, oh, hey, excuse me, can I just sneak in here? I'm just restocking, right? And that sounds like a small thing, but I don't think it is.
No, we've had this like stupid ongoing issue that we just haven't fixed yet.
Yeah.
Where we have our tool cabinet, it's got like a bench top, and we have all of our stuff on the top of the bench for changing out tools in tool holders. But if one person is changing out a tool, they block all of the other drawers from being opened.
Yeah.
And so that means either that someone can't be getting tools to prep for putting in holders, or restocking, or checking to see if we have a tool in stock. All of that is blocked by this one activity, simply because we just haven't moved it to the side, which is ridiculous. But also,
here we are.
That's the thing that happens. Yeah. Routinely, apparently. So yeah, things like that tend to be much more sort of negatively impactful than I think we often give credit for.
The ninth lean waste of chaos.
Yeah.
It's like we're so used to constant interruptions throughout the day and constant interruptions to value add activities,
right?
That we're just like, yeah, what's the big deal? You're going to sneak in there real quick, print something off. Like, okay, here's a dumb example from my shop. Our printer for printing Kanban, which is something we've been doing quite a bit lately, is the computer. Well, until recently, when we put it on the network, was the computer at the assembly station. So if Sam was doing value add work of assembling product to ship to our lovely customers, I'd be like, hey, Sam, can I jump in here real quick and print off this card?
Yeah.
And anyway, so that I think is one big upside of the centralized storage, is suddenly restocking items, which is a very common thing in a physical goods shop, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't put the material rack on the saw.
Yeah.
Right? You have your material rack and you have your saw, and those should be close-ish, ideally.
Yeah.
But I also think it's telling that Toyota has this role of the water spider, which I don't understand where that name came from, and I don't necessarily understand the role of the water spider completely. But my understanding is it's to move.
Explain this thing that we don't understand.
Well, the examples I've seen, they move
information
and they move goods, right?
Yeah.
And that is all. That's all non-value add, but they exist.
Right.
And so using that as a North Star, there are scenarios where delivering product to the point of use immediately is not the move.
Yes.
Like a lot of people have a warehouse, and then they have a supermarket, and then they have delivery to line side.
Right.
And that is not the most efficient, but is the most efficient. No, it's not. I mean, I'm sure there are efforts to move toward that. Like you would then say, okay, what is preventing us from achieving true delivery to use?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting. Water spider, just quick Google. What is the water spider in lean? Water spider is a lean production personnel role centered around timely and accurate stock replenishment. The water spider team member is similar to a mobile Kanban system that refills the production line with the required materials to maintain a steady flow. The person filling a water spider position needs to have a good understanding of the process, excellent communication skills, and has got to follow the standards of each process stage. Yeah.
So I guess like consumption issues Kanban for replenishment. Yeah. They gather the Kanban, deliver stuff.
I mean, I think it has something to do with the fact that, right, like any Kanban system is not, well, that's not true. Most Kanban systems are not a unit of one, right? And so there is all of these like segmentations and buffers that still make it not a perfect flow. Yep. So they are there to help manage the fact that all of these flows are imperfect.
True. Yeah. I had a thought that I love your feedback on. Speaking of building tools, yeah. I had the realization today in my shop that we could issue Kanban for internally building tools. Mm. So there could be a Kanban for the assembly. And so for us, when we use a tool in the machine, when we have to replace a tool.
You're talking about like CNC mill tools?
Yeah. Built up in a tool holder.
Uh-huh.
Would that help you such that the tool building area was occupied by one person and there was a queue that had to be built out? And also, could that just be spit out of your ERP or your job management? Because you know all the tools you'll need. I don't know if you know which ones are built up.
Right. Yeah, I'm just thinking as you say that. I think fundamentally the answer is yes. I think the practicality of that is no. Yeah. I have to think through. There's a lot of dependency issues.
Yeah.
Such as what's in the machine already.
Right.
What's available. But fundamentally, it's actually maybe not that complicated. In essence, that is kind of what our work order slip does.
Uh-huh.
In the sense that when it arrives at the setup area, it has a list of the tools that you need by ID number.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still working through this, but in theory, you go to the tool rack, you gather whatever is available. Then if there's anything that's not built, you build it up.
Mm-hmm.
The hole in that system is that right now we don't have a good way to compare your needed tool list to the tool list that's already in the machine.
Oh, I see. So you can walk up to the rack. It's a little harder to walk up to a running machine.
You can. I mean, it's all on the front of the machine.
Oh, true.
So it's not like a major discrepancy. I think now that we're just saying this out loud, we have had a lot of focus on doing it digitally, but perhaps it needs to just be a first step. Like perhaps the step needs to be go to the machine first and like cross off anything that's there.
I like that.
Part of the issue,
because you know which machine you'll be running on, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Part of the issue presently is maybe just like a physical layout problem where that is visible primarily to the operator, and if an operator is there, they might be like physically blocking the list on the front of the machine, but that's an easily solvable problem. So I'm glad we talked through that, because it feels weird as a setup person to be like walking to the machine first. It feels redundant, but I think it is actually like that is a critical first step.
Here's a question. The job that you're currently running on a machine has a tool tag with all that information on
tool,
it, right?
A work order slip.
A work order slip with all that info?
Yeah, so what we've done in the past, and again, this comes to just simple physical layout stuff, was have just a computer screen up with both lists next to each other.
Okay.
But that does come down to sort of like a compare, which we're notoriously bad at.
Yeah.
Especially if it's like, it's not always like, ID 216 is going to be in tool
straight across from.
Yeah. So it might be like, oh, ID 216 is in tool pocket 6 right now, but it needs to move to tool pocket 4 for the next job.
Yep.
We try and avoid that, but it happens. So I think coming up with a quick and dirty way to kind of, I do kind of like going to the machine and looking at your list and but
I could see that. I could also see building something out in your job management software that is a button that's like, this is what's running on the machine. Here's what I'm running. Do a compare.
The hurdle is simply a formatting thing.
Oh.
Like right now it's just a text list within a certain, like in a
I see.
text field.
It's aggregating that from
our post processor, like G-code header. So it's
okay. Interesting.
This is a solvable problem.
Yeah, but
it
takes time, and
it is on the long-term list.
Yeah.
Part of it is that I think a lot of it's outside of my skill set, and there's a bunch of we need to come up with a roadmap for the pieces we need to put into place to make this happen. Basically,
you need to ask something like,
what is the target condition?
And maybe what is the actual condition? Although it sounds like you've mapped that out. But we're not on the Gemba, so
yes, it's true.
There's significant risk here. Yes.
Nice.
We had a happy accident as a last little tidbit when we were doing the implementation in your shop. It was preceded by a
unhappy accident.
Not just one. A series of unfortunate events. But the result was we printed out with much difficulty, printed out a whole bunch of cards to hang inside the cabinets for all your snacks so that people can just scan the things they want and add them to a cart.
Yeah.
And then we finally got all of them printed on index cards and then attached them to packing tape, but it didn't look great. And then we like taped a whole bunch to the inside. They weren't all, some of them were crooked, and anyway, we had a bunch of issues making them because they were printing out on different paper than they were meant to, and printer issues, which are always annoying. Yeah. We finally got it to work, and then it occurred to us that we could actually just replace the paper. Oh, then we were going to print them on business cards. And then we realized that if we which are like Avery, they come in a sheet, 10 cards, and then you break them out of the sheet. And we were about to do that when we realized we could just print them directly onto an 8.5 by 11 and hang that thing. Just hang it right in the cabinet, and you have your full list, and they're all, nicely square to each other too. So we started doing that. That was a happy accident, little discovery there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway. So that was cool.
But where's the fun in that? You could have built a special tool to align these things for taping.
Yeah, like a 3D printed jig.
Yeah.
That's true. Maybe we'll do that next week. Anyhow.
Great. Well, that's a good place to wrap up. Thanks, everyone, for coming along on this journey. We were just discussing what a journey it's been.
Yeah.
And hopefully everybody's still getting value out of this. We get a ton of value out of it. And
both are just showing up and discussing it and needing material to discuss. I feel like keeps it top of mind for sure in those lulls, and also the conversations and comments and emails from people have been huge. A lot of you guys really belong in these seats here instead of us, but here we are, and we really appreciate all the connections and information. So
indeed. You can find me on the internet at likenprecision.com, on Instagram at lichen_MFG. You can find the pod on Instagram at incrementalCI.
And you can find me at austere_manufacturing on Instagram, austeremfg.com, and then arta.cards on Instagram and arta.cards on the internet. We do have a Patreon. If you get value out of this, the best thing you can do to support the podcast actually is tell a friend about the podcast, get more people in the conversation. The second best thing you can do, and you can do both, is check out the Patreon and chip in a little to help us make the podcast.
Indeed.
Till next week.
Talk to you soon.